I don't remember exactly when I started shaking. Maybe it was when I saw the number $325.17 blinking on my banking app. Or maybe it was the sarcastic laugh I heard behind me. "What's the panic about? We just borrowed a bit, you've got plenty." I turned around, my eyes still locked on the phone screen, only to meet the shameless gaze of my sister's husband, Travis. He was leaning against the kitchen counter, beer can in hand, smirking like he'd just told a bad joke. "Olivia, you okay?" Lila, my sister, was lounging on the couch with a glass of wine, like this was just another chill family hangout. Her expression disturbingly casual. I had checked my account less than 24 hours ago. It was over $10,800.00. Now, it barely had enough for gas and a few packs of ramen. I had worked myself to the bone for the past 2 years to save that money. Every single dollar had a purpose, a plan. And now it was gone. No warning, no permission, no heads up. $10,800.00. My voice cracked. "What did you do with my money?" Travis shrugged like I was being dramatic. "It's still there, just being used for more urgent stuff." Lila let out a sharp laugh. "You always overreact. We're family, not everyone's as lucky as you. Travis and I just borrowed it to get by." My stomach twisted. "This isn't helping, this is stealing." "Oh, come on," my mom Donna called from the dining room, still holding her knitting needles. "Olivia, you're always like this. You're single, no kids, great income, living alone. You'll be fine. Why make a big deal?" I turned toward her. She didn't even look up. Like her daughter being robbed, didn't matter as much as her half-finished scarf. My fists clenched, throat dry. "You knew about this?" "I didn't know, no. I just..." "Lila said she needed to borrow a little for rent. I thought you were okay with it." I glanced at my dad. Henry slouched in the recliner, eyes glued to his phone, never even looked up. "Dad? Don't speak like you're blaming us," he muttered. "You're the most successful one here. Helping a little won't kill you." "Helping a little?" They called $10,800.00. Helping a little? I inhaled deeply, trying to steady my trembling hands. "How did you even get my banking info?" Lila gave me a quick side eye and shrugged. "You logged in on your laptop at home and didn't log out. I saw it and used it." "You should be more careful." "Used it?" I repeated, my voice dropping like thunder before a storm. "If I left my wallet out, would you use it too? Do you have any sense of boundaries?" Travis took a sip of beer, then added smugly, "Olivia, I thought you were smarter than this. You've always paid Lila's debts, bought her birthday gifts, booked family getaways. How is this any different?" I looked around the room. My mother, father, sister and her husband. No one looked sorry. No apologies. Not even a guilty glance. Just bored faces. Irritated that I'd interrupted their cozy evening. I zipped up my jacket and grabbed my bag. I wasn't spinning from the money. I was spiraling from the truth that had just slapped me across the face. I didn't have a family anymore. "Where you going?" Mom asked, not even moving to stop me. I turned back, my eyes like steel. "You'll find out soon. But don't worry, I'll be in touch. And by then, I hope everyone's ready." They chuckled, thinking I was just having a tantrum. But the moment I stepped outside and the cold wind hit my face, I knew. This nightmare was just beginning. I left that house not chilled by the weather, but by the people I once called family. I thought I'd be furious. But no. I felt empty. A strange hollowness, like every belief I had in them had just been stripped away, layer by painful layer. The next morning, I came back. Not to reconcile, not to talk it out. I returned for one thing, to see if they even thought they'd done something wrong. Mom opened the door. She was still in her robe. The smell of morning coffee lingered in the air. She didn't even look surprised to see me. "Olivia, why didn't you call first?" "You know why I'm here." I walked in. Voice cold and flat like steel. She sighed, closed the door behind me. "Yesterday? Olivia. Don't blow this out of proportion. Everyone's just trying. I snapped around. Trying what? To drain me? Wipe out my savings without a word? My father sat in the living room. Same recliner. Same iPad. Same evasive look. Henry. I called him by name. You knew, didn't you? He turned a digital page. Don't talk like you're accusing us. You're the only one in this house who's not struggling with bills. You've got a stable job, good income, your own place. If you don't help, who will? I clenched my hands so hard my knuckles turned white. So because I'm stable, I have to pay for everyone? Without permission? Without even being asked? You think that's okay? Mom sat down, fingers laced. We're family. You can't act like some outsider. Your sister's going through a lot. Her husband's unemployed. They've got a baby. And you? You're alone, no dependents. Don't tell me you don't understand. I let out a short, bitter laugh. No, I don't understand. Because I've never thought of taking from someone just because they had more. You think that's okay? That being family gives you the right to steal? Don't use such ugly words, Olivia, Mom snapped. This is sharing, supporting one another. Supporting each other without consent? Calling it family to justify violating my privacy? That's not support. That's betrayal. Dad cleared his throat. You should be more understanding. Everyone's just trying to make it through. You throwing a fit doesn't help anything. Doesn't help? I smirked. Or did I just finally expose the truth no one wanted to admit? That I stopped being part of this family a long time ago. To you all, I'm just a walking wallet, a cash machine, someone to help. Because I've got fewer burdens. No one replied. Both of them, the people who raised me, who claimed to love me unconditionally, just sat there, heads bowed. Not in shame, but because they didn't think they'd done anything wrong. I pulled out my folder, laying down a printed statement of my recent bank transactions. $1,200, 0 cents, toward Travis's car loan. $980, 0 cents, for Lila's new living room furniture. $400, 0 cents, utility bill. A dozen other charges. Totaling nearly $11,000, 0 cents. I handed the paper to Dad. He glanced at it, set it on the table and said nothing. Well? I asked, voice sharp. Anything to say? An apology? Even a hint of regret? Mom responded, gently but with venom. You've always cared more about money than about family. I looked her straight in the eyes. No, Mom, I value respect, and this house? There's none of that left. She looked down. But didn't apologize. I turned away. No one stopped me. No one called out my name, like in those heartwarming family dramas. Just the sound of the door closing behind me, and a silence that dragged on like a blade lodged deep in my chest. I got into the car, but didn't start the engine. My fingers were still trembling. Not from fear, but from rage. Turning into something else, something deeper, colder. I thought about all the years I worked myself to exhaustion, gave up weekend nights, skipped holidays, just to build an emergency fund. And now it was gone, because the people I loved decided they had the right to take it. No one said we were wrong. No one asked, are you okay? No one looked at me like a human being. I pulled out my phone and opened the banking app again. Still the same pitiful number. $325.17. I laughed, a sharp, frozen laugh. All right, I whispered. Let's see what happens next. I didn't go home right away. I drove aimlessly through street after street, as if searching for something, an answer, an explanation, a sign, that I hadn't been treated like dirt. But the longer I drove, the more old memories came flooding back, each one slapping me harder than the last. It didn't start yesterday, not when the account was drained. It started long ago. And I, foolishly, called it family love. I remembered the first time Lila called me at midnight. She had just given birth to Emma. Travis had just lost his job. Her voice was full of panic. Olivia, can you lend me money to cover rent? I'm scared the landlord will kick us out. I wired the money that night. $1,350. 0 cents. No repayment expected. Never brought it up again. Then, there was the time Mom's phone got shut off from an unpaid bill. She didn't call, just sent a text. Spent too much, can't cover my phone bill, can you help me out? I sent the money. When I called to check in, all she said was, "Oh, it's taken care of, thanks." That was all I got. After dozens of money transfers. No thank you. My dad used to drive an old beat-up Chevy, so busted he had to kick the door just to get it open. One March afternoon he called me, straight to the point. Car broke down, garage says I need a new engine. $1,900. 0 cents. Are you asking me to? Why else would I call? What's the point of having a kid? I laughed, then I still sent the money. Back then I believed my parents were just joking. They weren't. They've never been joking. They saw me as a walking ATM, one that worked overtime, drained itself silently, all for the sake of helping the family. I remembered Emma's birthday, Lila's daughter. I asked what gifts she wanted me to get. Lila said, "Anything you think is nice." I chose an engineering-themed Lego set, something Emma had once said she liked. Emma squealed when she opened it. But Lila frowned. "Couldn't you get something cuter?" Not a single thank you. Only criticism. Then there was the beach trip. I thought it was a shared vacation. Turns out, they only came along because they knew I'd cover everything: hotel, water park tickets, all of it. When I asked about it later, Travis clapped me on the back and said, "People with money should share. You're the one holding this family together, aren't you?" Holding it together? No. I was being squeezed dry. I was the support beam they leaned on to keep up their reckless spending habits, without ever taking responsibility. But I had tough times too. There were months when work hours got cut, and I had to slash every personal expense just to survive. I lived on sandwiches and cereal, 3 meals a day. For nearly 6 months. I didn't tell anyone. Because I thought, if I can manage, I shouldn't burden the family. I used to think that was noble. Now I know. It was stupid. I skipped a work trip to Paris with my coworkers because I had to cover $2,200. 0 cents. To help Lila avoid eviction. She didn't even remember that when she later complained that I lived such a boring life. And my mom? When I asked her, "Do you ever think I've sacrificed too much?" She just shrugged. "You're the older sister. You're supposed to set an example." Set an example? For who? For Layla, who's never held a job for more than 3 months. For Travis, who spends money like it pours out of the fridge. I pulled into the parking lot of an old mall. Sat alone in the dark. Opened my bank statement from the past 4 years. Scrolled. And scrolled. Still not done. Over 80 transfers. Totaling more than $47,000. 0 cents. Not a single repayment. Not a single thank you message. Not one card. Not one. Olivia, are you doing okay? What drove me insane wasn't the money. It was how expected it all was. They never once asked if I needed help. Never considered that I had feelings. Never truly saw me as part of the family, just an asset of the family. I stared at the screen. $325.17. I didn't cry. I wasn't even angry anymore. There was just one quiet thought slithering up from somewhere deep inside me. I'm not letting this go on for even one more second. It took me exactly 1 week to gather every unauthorized withdrawal, every bill paid without my consent, every old message and email that hinted, "She'll cover it, right? Olivia always takes care of that stuff. It's not a big deal." I backed it all up. Then I met with a lawyer, Carol Jenkins. A woman of few words, but eyes like blades. When I handed her the stack of documents, she only asked one thing. "How far do you want to take this?" I looked at her and replied without blinking. "The highest level legally possible." She nodded, saying nothing more. In her eyes, I wasn't a victim. I was the plaintiff. And this time, I wasn't backing down. On Saturday, my mom called. Her voice was soft, like nothing had ever happened. Olivia, we need to talk as a family. I made dinner. Please come over. Don't make this any more tense than it has to be. I almost laughed at the word family, but I still agreed. I'll be there, 7 o'clock sharp. When I arrived, I wore a black coat, carried a folder of documents and my laptop. No makeup. I didn't need to hide my anger anymore. Everyone was already there. Lila stood with her arms crossed by the window. Travis sat with his legs sprawled like he was waiting for a basketball game to start. My father was silent, reading the newspaper. My mother was setting the table, trying hard to look like everything was normal. You finally made it, my mother said, her tone artificially light. I hope we can resolve this peacefully. I pulled out a chair and set my bag on the table. Great. Let me begin. I opened my laptop and connected it to the projector. A large screen displayed a clearly formatted Excel spreadsheet, recipient names, dates, amounts, transaction details. Line by line, not a single cent missing. These are all unauthorized transactions from my personal account over the past 9 months. Total, $28,740.00. Lila frowned. Travis raised his eyebrows. My dad kept staring at the paper. You accessed our accounts? Travis growled. I authorized my attorney to work directly with the bank. Any transaction tied to accounts under my name was legally retrieved. I clicked to the next slide. Here is a list of all borrowed but never repaid funds over the last 3 years. Rent, car repairs, utility bills, personal items, credit card charges. Everything is marked with an asterisk because none of you ever asked for my permission. My mom sat down, her face pale. Olivia, this is family business, you don't need to treat it like a lawsuit. Don't need to? I cut her off. When you sat back as your daughter drained my savings, when dad kept saying helping a little doesn't hurt? When everyone stayed quiet knowing full well my account was being accessed? I slammed the printed documents onto the table. This is the formal complaint I filed with the district attorney's office. Charges, identity theft, financial abuse, and personal fraud. What? Lila screamed, her face going pale. That's right, I said coldly. And you better get ready. A knock sounded at the door. 3 knocks. Sharp and precise. The room froze. Travis jumped up. My mom began to shake. My dad let the newspaper fall to the floor. I stood up and opened the door. 3 men in Financial Investigation Bureau jackets stepped inside. One held a warrant, another carried a tablet, the third scanned the room like it was a crime scene. Olivia Walsh, the lead agent asked. Yes. I'm the complainant. He nodded. Thank you for your cooperation. We have sufficient documentation to begin interrogating the involved parties. Who is Lila Matthews and Travis Matthews? They froze. Travis swallowed hard. Lila collapsed into a chair like the blood had drained from her body. No, this can't be happening, she stammered. Everyone needs to remain calm, said one of the agents. Unauthorized access to banking accounts is a criminal offense, regardless of personal relationships. My mom stepped forward, eyes full of tears. I told them they didn't need to ask. I assumed she wouldn't mind. You don't have the right to decide what happens to someone else's assets, the agent said firmly. We'll take your statement later. I stood silently, watching them. Each one of them. The same people who used to smile sweetly when I paid for dinner. Who once said, I am so grateful, but never sent even $1 back. Now couldn't speak. I said, slowly and clearly. Family isn't an excuse to legitimize abuse. And I'm no longer your puppet. I turned to the agent. I'll wait outside. And as I stepped through the door, for the first time in years, I felt light, like the weight of an entire lineage had finally been lifted off my back. That night I left my parents' house with empty hands. Nothing left to lose. And nothing more to give. A few hours later, my phone started ringing. First it was Mom. I didn't answer. Then Lila, then Travis. They left voicemails. choked up messages. But not a single apology. Olivia, this has gone too far. I know you're angry, but calling the police, that's truly cruel. I didn't think you'd actually do it. You know I didn't mean any harm. Please talk to your lawyer, take the complaint back, okay? We didn't even spend the money on luxury, it was essential stuff. How can you turn this into a crime? I listened to them all. Not because I was considering forgiveness, but because I wanted to be sure. They still didn't get it. The next day my dad emailed me. Not to ask if I was okay. Not to ask why I did it. He wrote, "You're dragging our family name through the mud. After everything we've been through together, this is how you choose to destroy it all? Think carefully, Olivia. Someone's manipulating you." I read that line, "someone's manipulating you," 3 times. Then deleted the email without a second thought. I didn't need him playing the victim, not anymore. 3 days later, Lila called 8 times in a single afternoon. I didn't pick up. On the 9th I finally answered. Not because I wanted to hear her out, but because I needed to hear how far they'd go to justify it. "Olivia." Her voice was tiny, none of the usual sharpness left. "I know I was wrong. I know I crossed a line. But you didn't have to destroy the whole family like this." I said nothing. "Mom's falling apart. Travis lost his job. They're freezing my accounts. The lawyer says if no one drops the charges, we might be indicted. I'm begging you. Please." "You want me to forgive you?" I cut in, my voice low but ice cold. "Do you even hear yourself, Lila? You secretly stole my banking info. You used it for months to siphon money. You spent nearly $30,000, 0 cents, and called it Family Matters. And now, under investigation, you're talking about destruction? But we were struggling too," she screamed. "Mom and Dad said you wouldn't mind. If you didn't want to help, why didn't you say so from the start? Why set us up like this?" I didn't speak up because I didn't know. I didn't know I was being taken advantage of. And when I found out, I acted. "That's it. You're the only one who's stable. You always said you loved family, and now you're tearing it all apart? What do you want? Do you want us to go to jail?" I took a deep breath. "I want respect, and if that means you have to face legal consequences, then, yeah, I want that." She went silent for a few seconds, then screamed, "You're heartless." "No," I replied. "I just stopped letting people walk all over me." I hung up. The messages came flooding in afterward, but I didn't read them. I saved them all, for evidence. They weren't sorry. They were just scared of getting caught. 2 weeks later I was invited to the investigation office to verify information. I brought everything: bank statements, text records, emails, payment receipts. Even an audio recording of Lila calling me stupid for quietly paying everything. The lead officer asked, "If your family requests civil mediation, would you agree?" I looked him in the eye. "No, I don't need reconciliation, I need justice." On the 18th day, after the so-called family dinner, my mother left a handwritten letter in my mailbox. Cream-colored envelope, ink smeared in places from tears. But it still had that same tone. "I don't understand why you chose this path. Things could have been resolved more gently. You were always the calm one, the one who stepped back for others. Now that you've chosen this road, my heart is broken. Not a single, 'I'm sorry.' Not one 'we were wrong.' Just, 'why are you doing this?' Like it was all my fault." I placed the letter on the table and laughed. A cold, clear laugh I never knew I had in me. I went to my grandmother's house. Old, but peaceful. I poured a cup of tea and stared out the window at the little garden where she used to grow lavender. On the table, my phone kept lighting up with missed calls and messages. I turned it off. The breeze outside carried the scent of something old. A memory, but not a painful one anymore. Something in me had broken. But something else had grown in its place. Something I now call boundaries. I was no longer Olivia, the girl who paid every bill, gave up every dream, and carried the whole family on her back. I was Olivia, the woman who said enough. I left the apartment I rented downtown with just one suitcase, a folder of documents, and a heart hollowed out by people who once called me family. I didn't drive home. I had no intention of returning to a place that used to be called a home but had become a shell of manipulation and betrayal. Instead, I turned the wheel the other way, toward the little house in Spring Hollow, the only place in the world where I ever felt truly safe. That house once belonged to my grandmother, Edith Walsh, a widow who lived quietly through her final years in a 2-bedroom wooden cottage with a backyard full of lavender and wild daisies. She was the only one in my family who never asked for anything from me. Only one question every time I visited. "Are you happy, Olivia?" She passed away 3 years ago. But before that she left me a key, no note, just a handwritten line. "If they turn their backs on you, this place is always open." That night I drove 3 hours in a light drizzle. The closer I got to Spring Hollow, the lighter the air felt. Cleaner, even as I still carried the weight of anger, pain, and betrayal. When I stepped onto the porch, key in hand, part of me was afraid. Afraid the place had decayed, swallowed by time. But when the door opened, I smelled old wood, faint citrus peel, and dried flowers. The space was frozen in time. And strangely, it didn't make me feel lonely. It made me feel held. I flipped the switch. The lights came on. I turned the faucet. Water flowed. My grandmother, as if she had foreseen everything, had left behind a house ready to run, just waiting for me to come back. I set my suitcase by the door. No unpacking. No computer. No checking my phone. I pulled out the old blanket, curled up on the couch, and let myself fall asleep. No bank alerts. No mom scolding me. No transfer requests from Lila. No Travis screaming I was destroying the family. Just real sleep, for the first time in years. In a space where no one demanded I pay for simply existing. The next morning, I woke to golden sunlight filtering through thin curtains and birdsong echoing through the old trees by the woods. I stepped out onto the porch, coffee in hand, and sat on the same creaky wooden chair my grandmother used to sit in every afternoon to read. I looked at the garden. The lavender still grew, wild, stubborn, and unbothered. Just like me. I thought about the past. Not to punish myself, but to understand how I let myself be drained for so long. I used to believe that sacrifice was love. That if I just kept giving, kept carrying the weight, one day, they would notice. Appreciate me. But the truth is, gratitude can't be forced. And misplaced love only leads to loss. That afternoon, I did the first thing for me in years. I removed the old SIM card, dropped it in a drawer, and set up a new number. Shared only with 3 people. My lawyer, a trusted coworker, and my best friend from college. Kira. I sent one final email to my parents, and to Lila. No long explanations. I do not wish to have further contact until all legal proceedings are complete. Do not text, do not call. If the harassment continues, I will file for a restraining order. Olivia. I signed it with my full name. No daughter. No sister. Because from now on, I hold no titles in that family. I began cleaning the house. Dusting every shelf. Watering the plants. Opening my grandmother's photo album. In one picture, I saw myself at 16, sitting in her lap, smiling like the world couldn't touch me. I had lost that smile long ago. But here, in this place, I would learn how to find it again. That night, I made a simple meal. Red bean soup and garlic toast. I played my grandma's old jazz playlist, sat by the window sipping red wine from an old glass. No one asked me for anything. No one complained about the food. No one asked, "When will you pay us back?" or "Can you cover one more thing?" Just me, alone, and a silence that was finally peaceful. Before going to bed, I wrote one line in my journal. For the first time in almost 10 years. Today I breathed. Not because someone needed me strong, but because I deserve a life that doesn't drain me. A life where I'm not a walking wallet. I am Olivia. And I'm still here. I closed the journal. I turned off the light. And once again, I slept peacefully. Just 2 weeks after cutting off all contact, I received an express mail package from the law firm Freeman and Harlow, based in downtown Seattle. Inside was a thick letter, along with a marked urgent copy of a legal document. Plaintiff, Lila Matthews. Defendant, Olivia Walsh. Case, defamation, emotional distress, unauthorized data access. I froze. My breath caught in my chest. She wasn't just refusing to take responsibility, she was trying to drag me down with her. I immediately called my attorney, Carol Jenkins. I figured they'd try this, she said, her voice unsettlingly calm. That sister of yours thinks she's smart, switching from defense to offense. But don't worry, Olivia, we're 2 steps ahead. That very afternoon she filed a countersuit, presenting verified evidence of unauthorized access, financial fraud, and a petition for a restraining order against both Lila Matthews and Travis Matthews. I'm not letting them come within an inch of you, Carol said firmly. And if they keep pushing, we'll seek damages for emotional harm, on your terms. While the other side spiraled into their smear campaign, I stayed in my grandmother's old house, rebuilding one shelf at a time, replanting lavender along the fence, cooking recipes she once taught me. I cleaned the living room and rehung the picture of her and me in the old wooden frame. The only thing in the world that ever made me feel unconditionally loved. Then one morning, as I was checking emails, I saw a subject line from a surprising sender. From Kelly Sanders, Lila's cousin. I nearly stopped breathing. Kelly was a distant cousin on my mother's side. We weren't close, only met a few times at family gatherings. She had always been quiet, kept to herself, and would disappear any time the family tone turned judgmental or demanding. I opened the email. The message was short, but it made my eyes sting. Olivia, you probably don't remember me well, but I've known you, at least through what my mom, Aunt Donna, and Lila used to say. They often called you stubborn, cold, ungrateful. I believed them, I used to. Until I learned the truth. That you were taken advantage of for years. That you stayed silent because you thought it was the right thing. That they laughed behind your back every time you helped. That they called you selfish while spending your money. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. And more than that, thank you. You gave me the courage to move out. I'm 29, and I was still living with my parents. But for the first time, I chose myself over silence. Thank you for standing up. Not just for you, but for people like me. Kelly. I read it over and over. Because for the first time in this bitter, dark journey, someone saw me not with demands but with respect. Unlike Kelly, the rest of my former family spiraled deeper into collapse. Lila tried to appeal the restraining order. It was denied. Travis lost his job at the accounting firm after an internal investigation revealed his involvement in unauthorized withdrawals from someone else's account. My father, according to an old acquaintance, went on social media ranting that I'd been brainwashed by greedy lawyers trying to profit off a fractured family. And my mother? She sent another handwritten letter. Still no, I'm sorry. Just one line. You destroyed everything over a bit of money. I didn't respond. Because I understood. They didn't want forgiveness. They just wanted my silence. A week later, Lila's lawyer sent a request for private mediation. It took me 3 seconds to answer Carol. No, let it proceed legally. You sure? Absolutely, I'm done staying silent. I've already paid for that silence. With my whole life. That night, I turned on my grandmother's old playlist. Curled up on the sofa with a book and a cup of chamomile tea. Moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating the warm little room. I no longer felt angry. No longer hurt. All I felt was faith in my own decision. They could call me destructive. Ungrateful. The one who broke the family. But now I knew one thing for sure. A real family doesn't make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. 3 months after filing the complaint, I stood in the parking lot of a modern apartment complex in Portland, Oregon. Key in hand, new phone number, and a heart lightened as if a boulder had finally rolled off my chest. I had left Washington, left the town, left the haunted streets of the past, left every trace of them. No more midnight calls. No more long-winded texts accusing me of being a traitor. No one banging on my door with sob stories about needing urgent tuition help. Here, I was just Olivia. No roles attached. I started over. I applied for a job at a small financial security software firm. A place that understood the value of privacy, boundaries, and transparency. I passed 2 rounds of interviews, and during the third, the company's CEO, a woman named Marie, looked me in the eye and said, "I didn't pick you because your resume is impressive. I picked you because of how you talk about boundaries, with family, with yourself, and with pain. You're not afraid to name it. And we need that to shape the culture here." 2 weeks later, I started as lead of personal risk management. 3 months later, I was promoted to director of user strategy, at age 34. I didn't post about it on social media. I didn't call home to share the news. I didn't send holiday cards. I kept that milestone to myself. As a gift for the girl who once sat on a park bench, clutching her phone, breathless over a bank balance of just a few $100s. I wasn't a walking wallet anymore. I was a person. A person with the right to exist without constantly paying for it. Every morning I brewed coffee in a sunlit kitchen. Stared out at the balcony covered in lush green vines. I didn't wake up to see who needed me. Who was angry. Who was gossiping behind my back. I only needed to check one thing. Was my heart still quiet? On weekends I went for walks. Visited the used bookstore at the corner, where the old owner, Arlo, always let me choose the music. I relearned how to cook. Not for anyone. Not to impress. Just to know I could cook dinner for myself and enjoy it. I started journaling again. Nothing long, just 1 line a day. Today, I didn't apologize for putting myself first. Today, I didn't feel guilty for ignoring messages from people who saw me as a bank. Today, I smiled without needing to explain why. One early spring evening, I received a handwritten letter. No sender listed. But the handwriting was unmistakable. My mother's. I opened it. 10 pages. Full of guilt-laced blame. "You broke your father's heart. Lila cries every night because of the investigation. We used to be so close. How could you?" But still not a single line. "We were wrong. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve what happened." I fed the letter into the shredder. Because I no longer needed to hold on to the remnants of something called family, if all it ever was a mask for control and exploitation. One time during lunch with my boss, Marie, she asked me, "Olivia, if someone asked why you cut ties with your family, what would you say?" I looked her straight in the eyes. "I didn't abandon them, I just stopped pretending that family was still whole." She nodded. Didn't press further. Because she understood. People who've built a second kind of family, the chosen kind, always understand. That night, I went home and played Grandma Edith's old playlist. A recording of her laughter from a picnic years ago still lives on my phone. I hit play, poured a glass of white wine, and stepped out onto the balcony. Below, the city glowed in soft golden lights. No one here knew who I was. No one cared that my own parents once conspired to betray me. No one labeled me the responsible eldest or the selfish one who forgot her family. I sat in the wicker chair, crossed my legs, and whispered, "I did it, Grandma." In that stillness, I knew. I was no longer the shadow of unacknowledged sacrifice. I was Olivia Walsh. And I was still here. Alive, breathing, no longer anyone's victim. Olivia's story is a powerful reminder that not everyone born into the same family will love and respect you. For years she was used as a financial lifeline, manipulated with fake affection and false responsibility. But Olivia dared to say enough, dared to stand up and reclaim her worth. She didn't abandon anyone. She simply chose herself. In a world that often glorifies sacrifice, Olivia shows that protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's necessary for a life of dignity. What do you think about Olivia's decision? Was she too harsh? Or was it what she needed to save herself? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful and emotional family stories.